Well, good evening and welcome to About the Valley. And as we announced earlier, we have with us tonight two people from the Northbridge Schools Department. We have the Superintendent, Dr. Stickney, and the guy with all the headaches, the Chairman of the Board, Mike LeBrasseur. And I don't know, Mike, why anybody wants that job, but
I hear that a lot.
at least Kathy gets paid.
This is true. That is true.
Yes.
That is true.
And I always say, I admire anybody who serves in town politics because it's not a paying position. I mean, the selectman gets paid, but that's you're not going to get rich on it.
Right.
So it's really to spend your time. I did 15 years on a planning board. It's not, it's a lot of work, and you don't get anything for it. If you do it out of you want to help the town. You want to support the town. Well, anyway, we'll get right down to it. The main topic right now, this time of year, of course, is the budget. Your school budget, town budget, because May town meeting is coming up, and we'll be voting on a budget. I don't know, has the school committee, the finance committee reviewed your budget yet?
Yes.
Last night they voted to support our budget. Yes.
Okay, so no changes.
No.
No.
See? And this is what I try out. People say, well, I don't agree with. Go to the finance committee meeting. I know they get into very fine details on your budget.
We went to at least three. It might have been four different meetings where we've gone, we've met with them, we've talked through the budget. We've gone back the last couple of weeks when we thought they were going to vote, but they still have some outstanding questions in general about the budget, not specific to the schools. So, but we're there to answer questions, and they've gotten a lot of detail, and they've asked some great questions as well.
I don't think people realize how much that the finance committee gets into budgets. I mean, to the whole town, but especially the school budget because it's the biggest one.
It is. Yeah.
So,
Right here.
yeah. And now, is it bigger than last year?
Yes, it's 1.25% higher than last year, which is about $310,000.
Yeah.
That's our overall operating budget. Our operating budget is just over $25 million. The town appropriation is that's the number I don't have. That's closer to 20, little over 22 and a half. That's what comes from the town. The rest is through grants or through our revolver revenues.
Well, through the town, that's also money from the state.
The state,
Yes.
60% of that comes from the state.
People are falling off their chairs right now. No, it doesn't all come from your local taxes. It comes from state sent down on the cherry sheet.
Yep.
Yes.
But you're talking 1.3%.
1.25.
1.25.
Yep.
The inflation, I believe, is around 1.5
Yep.
because they gave a cost of living on Social Security at 1.5, I believe it was.
Yep.
So you're even under what the feds are saying is the rate of inflation.
Yeah, and keep in mind that budget that we're talking about, we've not added, we've actually reduced.
Yes.
There's one new position which we can talk about, but overall we're down positions. We've reduced areas of the budget, so it's not like we're continuing to add things. And we all know what happened last year as well. So it's been 2 years in a row of what I'm calling a reduced services budget, where we're not offering the same services, programs, staff that we did in the previous year.
I think the way you support it, we've got to get out to the people. How many students are there in the system?
2,400.
Right, it's
And
2,400. So you might say it's like a company with 2,400 employees. They're not getting paid, but in base, it's just giving them service. Now, on top of that, how many employees do you have?
375.
Yeah. So,
Total.
you're not talking a small operation.
No.
No.
How anybody can think that you can operate this on a shoestring?
Right.
And I think it's important to note for some of those students, it goes above and beyond our
That's the
typical
whole thing.
per pupil spending.
Yes.
Yes.
This is what, if you go back 50, 60 years ago, this wasn't a situation that you had.
Right.
A lot of times, these kids were shoved off to special institutions or,
Unfortunately, yes.
didn't even live at home in a lot of cases. But now, the idea is to assimilate them into the population. And even though some of these kids may never learn, you give them at least they mix with the population, they get to fraternize to a certain extent. You know, and I think it's much, and they deserve that.
Absolutely.
I mean, they're citizens just like we are. Why should they have to be shoved into an institution and not see the rest of the world ever?
It's amazing. All of our students can learn and achieve, and especially in an inclusive environment, in the support staff that we have are simply fantastic. And to watch school on a day-to-day basis and go in and outside of classrooms, it really lends itself to saying this is all worth it.
Right. I mean, it's a fact that handicapped children, blind children, deaf children, still can learn
Absolutely.
and do very well. Of course, Helen Keller showed that. But we can't go back to those days when they just say, well, we got to, throw them to the side. They're not going to get anywhere.
We do have some students that need different types of services that we cannot provide in school.
Right.
So
Well, yeah,
in terms of,
they get to a certain extent that you
yes,
can't do it.
But that comes at outrageous costs.
And that
sometimes.
cost comes down onto the school department
Yes.
again. That's what a lot of people don't realize. Now, also with special needs, I've always said the money should follow the child,
Right.
not come in after the fact.
Right.
Well, and when it comes in at a significantly reduced rate. You know, when we spend approximately 10% of our budget on 1% of our students who, as Dr. Stickney mentioned, require services outside of the school district. That's something we can't predict in terms of, you know, what those students come or go into the town.
And there's nothing you can do about it.
There's not a lot we can do about it, and we get reimbursed. They set a threshold. We get a reimbursed over that amount, and only at 75%. So, you know, it's not like the state is reimbursing us anywhere near where I think they should be.
Yeah, you know, and we're talking about things that would be nice if they did take place.
Yeah.
I always said that I think the state needs to take over more of the cost.
Yeah.
One way of lowering property taxes if the state took up more of the cost of education.
Yes.
But I don't see that happening.
I don't either.
No.
And also, if they do take it over, though, we don't want them to take over control.
Absolutely.
Because that'd be worse. You know,
I agree.
I think that the higher the control goes, the worse it gets.
Yeah, I mean, there's value obviously to having local control. I mean, you need support, and I would like to see more support coming at the state level. But in terms of knowing the community, knowing the students, I think obviously it makes sense to have local control.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And so far this year, we've had, as we've gotten into 2015, we have seen great support from our local representatives that have been here and in contact with us. They're coming to the school committee meeting this coming week, so we're very fortunate to have such great support at the state
Representative
level.
Meridian just he signed something about the schools. I forget what it was now. I got to freshen up because I'm going to talk to him about that.
There's actually two pieces of legislation that he has supported. One, the governor eliminated what's called the kindergarten expansion grant, which encourages districts to offer full-day kindergarten. We've been getting that grant for a number of years now. It would have been approximately $75,000 that we're not getting for next year. Representative Meridian has signed on to request that be reinstated. And for the last 3 years, we've received the minimum increase from the state, which has equated to $25 per student. This year, the governor reduced that to $20 per student.
Oh.
Representative Meridian has also signed on to legislature that is requesting that number be increased. I think to, if not 100, at least 50.
At least 50.
Yeah, there's a lot of legislature out.
Oh, okay, because I thought the governor was increasing state aid.
That was the original report, but it didn't filter down that way to all schools.
Right.
So unfortunately, as
Oh.
the headline came out that there was an increase in funding to education,
Right.
it didn't happen that way for us in Northbridge.
Okay, it happened in some cases, but not
Correct.
all.
Yes.
Very few districts receive, I think over 200 school districts receive the minimum increase. So so what is it for us? That's $48,000.
Yeah,
Not a lot, right? So
yeah. I mean, what? But $48,000 in a budget that's tight, extremely tight.
Yeah.
It hurts.
It's barely one salary for a teacher.
Yeah. We got a call here. Let me take this call because I want the viewers to be able to get a chance to ask their questions. Go ahead, you're on. Hello.
Hello?
Yeah, you're on.
Good evening, and thank you for taking my call. And I want to thank you, Harry, and the chairman of the school committee, and the school superintendent, and the whole school committee. And I think I speak for legions in town that like to go out to the whole school system, the volunteers, the PTA, and we really appreciate everything that you're doing in these hard financial times. And there are some people that you may get some negative responses, but I think the majority of the people are with you. And I just thought I would run a few things through by the school committee chair. And the first thing was, Mike, I don't know if you think this is viable, if the school committee should potentially waste its time, treasure, and talent to write a letter to the Board of Selectmen and ask them if they could potentially support more funding, for the schools through the kindergarten grant, and also, through state aid, asking our state legislators and potentially also asking their, Board of Selectmen, State Association, and the Town Manager Association if a letter like that would be something that may be viable. I'll let you comment on that, Mike.
I absolutely think it's worthwhile. I think you may know I have written a letter to all of our legislators requesting that they look at increasing local aid for our district. I've also shared that letter with the governor and the lieutenant governor, whether they've read it or not. I'm sure they haven't, but I've put it out there to them. But I think I certainly would be willing to go and talk to the town manager and the chairman of the Board of Selectmen and ask them if they'd be willing to do something similar. I do know that the Mass Association of School Committees, as well as the Mass Municipal Association and the Mass Superintendents Association, have also very strongly advocated for revisiting the local aid numbers. So hopefully, we still have a chance as the budget goes through the Senate or the House and the Senate. So optimistic that maybe some things could change.
Oh, excellent. And another question that I don't know what appears to be the stumbling block, but I know a lot of people have asked the town manager to put a survey on the town's website, similar to the survey that you guys put on your website, asking residents so that they could do a thing of how the town could generate revenue or potentially increase revenue. And, if the town is continually reluctant to do that, would you potentially consider putting a survey on the school committee's website so that residents could potentially, add how they think or have ideas how the town can save money or generate revenue that potentially help, the schools and the town? And another thought, I don't know if you were here, Mike, when we were talking about when the high school and everything was going on, but if my memory is correct, there was 40 acres that the high school is situated on, and the town has another 21 acres, which is also vacant adjacent to it, which borders Providence Road. I mean, there are some thoughts out there, a 30-acre solar farm, which could potentially bring in between $300,000 to $400,000 in revenue. And I mean, that's just a thought. I mean, I don't know what the town has plans for that 21 acres, but I think we have to be realistic. Is the state going to actually come up with the money to help the schools? And if they don't, then we potentially may have to think of ways to generate revenue in the town, or on some of the other lot of unused land in town with the maybe potentially. I'm just throwing out a solar farm as a thought. I know years ago the town and the soccer association bought a lot of land on Douglas Road, and originally it was going to be soccer fields, but it turned out to be fly ash, so they couldn't use it for soccer fields. But it may be applicable to a solar farm. But I mean, these are just some quick thoughts, and I want to say again that we thank you for everything that everybody is doing in trying to get more aid for the school district. And like I said, a lot of people are supporting you. And when I even in the local grocery store. And I was up at the State House last week talking with some of the representatives, and I continually advocate for more state funding, for the schools. So I think that, like I said, I want you to know that you're not totally alone in this endeavor, and people are out there to support you. All right, I'll let someone else call in, and thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. You also raised a great point that we could not get by without all of the help of the volunteers.
Yes.
Especially this year. It has been difficult in having our middle school students raise enough money to play their sports in some of our co-ops at the high school. So absolutely, we could not do this without great support in the community and all our volunteers and organizations. So we owe a huge thank you to them.
He talks about raising revenues another way. The town manager put the idea on about the food tax,
Yeah.
Yes,
meals
he
tax,
did.
and it got rejected.
A couple times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I say put it on again. Maybe eventually it'll pass. I don't know. But the town is very conservative on taxes. And I know where they're coming from there. Everybody's got it tight. Budgets are tight. I mean, tight for
understand.
everybody.
Yeah.
But, I mean, you gotta educate your populace. If anybody thinks that it makes more sense not to give your populace education, let me tell you, you'll be much worse off in the long run.
Right.
Horace Mann discovered that. That's how we became an industrial country. The strength we are is because we started educating.
I think one of the greatest examples that I heard recently was in Whitensville alone. When the mill went in, I was told this story about how the Whiten family would actually help any immigrants that came in that
Yep.
did not speak English, and helped them learn how to read and speak English,
Right.
and have family organizations and baseball games to really help them fit in. So the whole purpose of education in the town to better the town was there right from the start.
They built the schools.
Yes.
Because they knew they need to educate the populace to have a workforce that could work the machinery, make the equipment that they made, to build the machineries they made. It's just so simple. But I will say that, and I see what my granddaughter gets for homework and how she's doing. You can get a damn good education in Northbridge.
Well, thank you. We'd like to think so.
I know you can. and I've seen it with my own kids. But you're going to want it.
Yeah.
And that's the other problem you have. And a lot of people don't see that. They can't compare you to a Worcester Academy or any private schools because they don't have the same situation. You've got kids that have extreme discipline problems, that have extreme home problems, that come to school every day. You got kids that come to school without eating.
We have to accept everyone, and we do gladly, but it is a challenge.
Yeah. So I mean, you gotta weigh this in and try to get the education out there. And God bless the teachers that have to deal with, 20, 30 kids in a classroom,
Yeah.
and only take 2 or 3 disruptive ones to make it awfully difficult.
Here's another point that I alluded to earlier is we have 34 students in the district who are English language learners. So English is not their first.
34.
34. They speak 9 different languages.
Oh,
We right now have one teacher, one ELL teacher to support those students. The state has come in and audited us, and we will be adding a second. That's the one position we've added for next year, a second ELL.
see, that's
teacher.
another thing people don't understand.
No, can you explain about that
Absolutely.
audit?
So as students come in their language, English is not their first language.
Right.
We go through a battery of assessments that are required by the state. And from those assessments, it tells us how much direct instruction in sheltered English immersion they are required to have. So it's all mandated by the state and the federal government. Actually, with our 37 students, we should have the equivalent of 4 teachers to provide all of the time. And the state came in one of our audits this past year, found us to be non-compliant because we only have 1 teacher trying to cover all of their language instruction time. So,
And to have 4, you're talking probably another $100,000.
pretty close.
And the thing is, too, that these languages aren't as common as they were in the last wave of immigrants.
Right.
Yes.
We had a large French-Canadian population, Polish, Armenian. But a lot of these, they're Spanish, but they're different dialects.
True. We also have a fair portion of our population that speak Arabic,
Yes.
Vietnamese.
Yeah.
So yes, we're
People don't
seeing
realize that.
Chinese. We're seeing
Yep.
some languages come in that we don't have anyone really.
And then with
That
the
can
Chinese,
assist
there's
them.
different dialects on the Chinese. So it can be difficult to get a Chinese instructor, but they don't speak that particular dialect. Oh, yeah, and they're not getting it at home either.
It's working with the entire family.
Yep.
Yes.
And you know, one of the problems with the immigrant wave today is because of the internet and satellite television, they don't even watch American TV. Years ago, a lot of immigrants learned to speak English by watching TV or listening to the radio.
You had no choice.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, they get their home stations
Right.
Mm-hmm.
in their own language. So they don't even, they don't merge into the population like like they used to. It's not, we're losing the melting pot effect.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting. We had a very interesting story that happened when we had a family that came to school, and they enrolled their two children. The two children did not speak any English. So we actually, a teacher came and had her iPad, had an iPad that had been purchased from one of the departments, brought it down, and the young gentleman knew exactly how to operate the iPad, but we used it to actually help them as a translator to communicate with us. So it was
Oh.
amazing. They didn't necessarily speak English,
Yep.
but having the iPad
That's where
helped us
technology is a
communicate.
big help.
But they knew exactly how to operate the technology, which goes to speak to your point. So it did help us in the end.
Yeah, now see, how do you assimilate a child like that into the high school system where they're going to change classes, or the middle school changes classes as well,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, how do they find direction?
It's difficult, and I think to compound that, not only the day-to-day conversations, even what would you like to eat in the cafeteria,
Right.
and how do you find a certain classroom, but then some of the classes, because they have access to every class. So as they're choosing their classes and they're sitting in a biology class, not only are they learning day-to-day language that's necessary, but they're actually, they need to acquire the academic vocabulary, which is
Yes.
even more challenging.
Yeah, especially when you get into the sciences.
Right. Science and math, and
Right.
it's difficult.
Now, the new education system, I forget what they call it now.
Common
The
Core.
Common Core.
Yeah, I know you would know because it's so controversial. Now, you had to adopt it, right?
Yes,
Is it mandated by the state, or?
correct.
So I hear people complaining about it, but you have no choice.
That's true. In fact, Massachusetts, we are mandated to teach to the Massachusetts state frameworks. So in 2011, Massachusetts took the Common Core. They were mandated to adopt 85% of the Common Core standards. So we follow the new Massachusetts frameworks that include the Common Core.
Oh, okay.
So it's still Massachusetts owned. They did add 15% of standards that were specific to Massachusetts, our state history, but also Massachusetts was one of the only states that took that 15% that we could change, and we added preschool curriculum, early learning curriculum. So it's a pre-K through 12 continuum, where most states didn't do that. Which actually is even more interesting, that Massachusetts then cut the full-day kindergarten grant for us after establishing the early learning standards.
And, you know, the all-day kindergarten, I think that's a great thing. It gets them right away
Absolutely.
into getting used to going all day.
Mhm.
It gives you a chance to teach them a lot more.
We expect them to read
Yeah,
in
I
kindergarten.
mean,
And especially, I know when we talk about this with Principal Healy from the elementary school, she talks about the number of kids that come to kindergarten without those skills that they should have because they're not going to preschool, or they have very limited preschool. And that obviously trickles down as they, proceed through all the grades. If now you have a half-day kindergarten, you've lost all that time to catch those kids up. So it just makes the problem even that more difficult.
we have a Head Start program in town, right?
Yes.
But the kids don't get enrolled? Is it because it's based on economics, and if you're not qualified, or I don't know exactly how it
That's
works?
true. And they also have a very long waiting list. So
Oh.
it's limited enrollment. Students have to wait on the waiting list. And they will then look for preschool options that may have a sliding scale, but preschools need to have paying people as well to raise their revenue.
All this comes back to the parents, a parent in a lot of cases.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't teach your kids when they're preschool, they should be learning their colors at home.
It helps.
Maybe doing a little bit of reading, not a lot, but you can get them started on something. Get them, you have preschool books.
Reading a book every night, going to the library,
Yep.
huge to give them that head start just in how to
Even
handle a book.
Make them watch Sesame Street. That show does teach them a lot.
It does.
And if you don't want to bother them, at least get them in front of the TV and watch something that'll educate them.
Yes.
But unfortunately, a lot of parents don't take that response, and that's another problem you have. You need responsible parents to have good educated kids as well.
Mm-hmm.
If the parents aren't cracking a whip on them.
Well, we work hard to try to incorporate and engage the parents in community activities. We had 3 very successful math nights recently at NES and Balmer for our little ones because the math curriculum has changed dramatically, and parents who want to be involved
So I've heard.
want to work with their children are asking, how? I don't understand this new math.
My son said that. I can't do it with her because it doesn't make, I can't make it, and he was educated like we were, where you memorized your timetables.
Yes.
Yep. We should try to work with my daughter sometimes, and I'm telling her the way I know how to do it, and
Yeah.
that's not
No,
how we're
that's not
supposed to
the
do
way.
it.
And-
Like, well, I don't know what to tell you now.
We've had parents that have written notes that have said, my child said, no, don't help me, stop helping me because you're not helping me. So we definitely don't want to encourage that. We truly appreciate all the assistance parents
But
give
this
us.
thing about, and you hear the story all the time, that, under that core,
Common Core.
Common Core math, it's 4 and 4 can equal 9.
Not necessarily. It
And
should
I-
never equal 9.
Well, as long as you can show how it got there, but I don't see how you could possibly get there.
I think what the point of the new strategies in math is to actually support students that there's many different ways to solve a problem.
Right.
To be problem solvers rather than rememberers. But there will always be a need to have that rote mathematical knowledge. But I think to actually build the underpinnings of understanding that if you have 4 and 4, that will be 8, even if it ends up being 6 and 2.
Right.
Yep.
I know problem solving is a big part of math, and the idea was to teach you how to think.
Yes.
It wasn't to be able to do math, it was to teach you how to think.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember doing those in the 3rd grade, started with the problems, written
Yeah.
problems, which is good because it teaches you to use your head.
Mm-hmm.
And but like I said, the Common Core seems to be taking it too far for me. But I gotta believe there's got to be something to that. It would not make sense that people would adopt this, educators would adopt this system if it didn't have some kind of viable reasoning behind it.
Essentially, I think it really came to the forefront when the Race to the Top money came out in
Yeah.
2010, because they wanted to ensure, in order for the United States to step up in the international educational scene, based on test scores, we were lagging behind. So I think this was an attempt to get all states on the same page with the same standards. And some states have now walked away.
Here again, though, now, see, they're saying that we're lagging behind in a lot of parts of education. But we're taking the populace as a whole and grading it.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Now, you have exceptional people in that populace. And if you compare us to smaller countries, well, we're going to have more people that aren't doing well because we have more people.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't go by these comparisons. I think in a lot of ways, you're comparing apples and oranges.
Yes.
I saw a report over the weekend where someone was referring to Finland is often touted as one of the
Right.
higher educated countries right now. Finland has no private schools.
Mm-hmm.
Every kid in Finland goes to a public
Yep.
school.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think that that's a valid point that nobody really talks
Yes.
about.
But if you look at other things in Finland, they have a very low poverty rate.
Yeah.
Yes,
They have very strong family structures.
Yeah.
yes. And
So
the
the-
funding comes entirely from the country,
Yeah,
not from local entities.
but there's a lot of different, you have to look at all the aspects that are there.
Correct.
And you can't, like I say, you're comparing apples and oranges when they do things like that. And it's not fair. Because I see a lot of smart kids coming out of our public system.
Oh, yes.
We still invent more things than anybody else in this country. We still lead in technology.
Yeah.
And we're still the only country that went to the moon, even if it was 40, 50 years ago. So, I mean, come on. We don't undersell what we have
Right.
by saying, because we take some of the, it's because we have some that aren't as bright
Right.
or don't do as well.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think the concept is, or the underlying reason for that is they want continuous improvement is what we always want, right?
Right.
So we always want to be able to improve ourselves, but is benchmarking us against other countries really the only way to do that? Not
Right.
necessarily, but
Now, I think one problem that we might have brought on with our system is you want to graduate every child.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I think sometimes they make too many exceptions. We're getting away from it. I think as school administrators, you're getting aware of the fact that you've got to stop social advancement
Oh, absolutely.
because it doesn't help a child in the end.
Correct.
I know there are kids that get a high school diploma and can't read because they were push them through. Give them so then when they go for a job, you got a high school diploma? Oh yes, but they can't read the application.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't realize it because they just want to get through and get out there in the world, but they're doing a disservice to themselves, and they got a disservice done to themselves.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know how you can correct that. I don't know what you can do. If a kid doesn't want to learn, you just can't. You can't cut the head open and dump it in. It doesn't work that way. They either got to sit there and absorb it, or else.
Motivation is huge.
Yeah, and I don't know how. And that's where sports come in.
Yes.
And that's what a lot of people don't understand
And
either.
clubs and activities and
And the
bands.
arts.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
You
We
got
have-
to make it. School's got to become a place that they want to be there for other reasons other than just the education part of it is there, and they'll tolerate that because they want to do the other things.
Right.
Yes. That's why it's key that we keep those activities in place as much as possible, especially looking at a lean budget, because we know that for many of our students, that's what brings them to school every day.
Yeah. Now, I got to say, I mentioned a couple of years ago that you should do something. You got to do things. I think I talked to you about this before. You got to offer things that the kids want to do to
Yes.
keep them there. And you brought that broadcasting course in, which
Yes. We have, as you mentioned, the broadcasting, that's one of our career
Yeah.
academies. And this past year, we've had 5 career academies running, and we're moving that up to 7 next year.
well, now what are they?
So what we did was we have a very robust program of study where most people think that when you go to high school you take your math and your science and your English, which is true.
Right.
However, there are variations of each of those courses. So students may choose different sciences. So we have not only biology and earth science and environmental science, but also physics and engineering and numerous different courses they can take. We offer them on a rotating basis because we have a limited number of teachers. So what we realized, many people would say, I had no idea that you offered that. So we realized that if we took our program of study and created pathways, so to speak, so that our 8th grade students could look ahead and say, I really love computers. I love, whether it's computer design, or I really like the technical part of it, or I like the the CAD aspect of it, that's what I want to do. So what we have done is we've taken our computer courses and essentially lined them up so a student can say, I want the Computer Academy, start taking their electives freshman year, and know by the end they'll have a CAD certification, they'll have the opportunity to job shadow, hopefully do an internship, and we've had some students that have gone into a second semester when they've gone to QCC or on to college. So we realized if we packaged our program of study in a different way and made students aware of their options, it really was more motivating for them. So we have 7 academies that include computer design. And here's the challenge if I can remember them all. Broadcast media, so we are doing the broadcasting, and this coming year we'll also be adding the radio platform as well for that. We have the Justice Academy, which has our greatest number of students. We currently have 24 students in the Justice Academy, and these are all of our courses that include history, civics, psychology, criminology, law. So any of our students that are interested in potentially being police officers, law enforcement, detectives, lawyers, they have flocked to that. And justice, let's see. This year we're adding an honors academy for students that might not be sure that there's anything specifically what they want to study, but they're very interested in taking pre-advanced placement and advanced placement
So like a liberal
courses.
arts course?
Yes. So they'll get a broad range, but they'll finish high school with numerous college credits.
Right.
That actually, we've had some students that have shaved off a whole semester at a university. And the
That's a
cost savings
substantial
is
savings.
huge. Yes. We've added health science. So for our students that are interested in some veterinary medicine, we have some courses for that. Biology, pre-med, nursing.
This is good because these are all vocations that are becoming very important.
Yes. And there's another one I can't remember.
I've said that for years. You're on the right track here.
Well, thank you.
There's always been complaints that we're losing students to Blackstone Valley Tech. Well, because they could go into something that they really want to do. Now you're giving them a chance to do that here.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And this is good because not everyone's going to get to go there.
Right.
But you can get just as good an education here and get the chance to work at that vocation, research in that vocation.
Yes. Yep.
And see if you're going to enjoy doing that.
So we found it to be very successful. We have 54 students in it this year. Our application process is open, and we had at our celebration of learning last week a parent seminar, and we had 50 parents that came, and even underclassmen too. So our younger students, as they're going through engineering. We have a robust engineering program coming up through the middle school, and that seems to be extremely popular coming into this year.
And God knows we need engineers.
Yes.
Keep the country growing. But computer study, I mean, a lot of kids are just into it big time. And so, this is great that, I don't think a lot of people realize that what's going on.
And we didn't add anything. It was everything that we had in place, but just putting some formality around to it and really focusing in on, let's help build those job skills. Let's get the community involved in job shadowing. Let's provide internships. We took 25 students, engineering students, and our broadcast students up to iRobot in Burlington, and they got to tour the facility. They have a museum. They let them take apart the Zumbas or Rumbas, the little vacuums that...
Oh, yeah, yes.
And our broadcast students taped the event, so now we have it that we can air on TV.
Oh.
And the Justice Academy students went to
The courthouse.
Yeah. They got to see that live in action.
We have 2 students right now that are interning at the courthouse with the clerk.
Oh.
So great things.
We have an intern here.
One of ours.
Yeah. Generally on Thursday night. I don't think he's not here tonight. He's here on Wednesday and Thursday. But
Okay.
He doesn't come all the time because
I thought so.
he has other things that, he's got to take care of other things as well.
Yes. So, and we're trying to get a field trip to come on over too.
Yes. And, we'd love to have them come in and let them use the equipment, use our green screen equipment and
They would love that. That's the one thing that I have to laugh as I go into the high school pretty much on a daily basis. There's always students walking around with video cameras and cameras now. They're filming everything, doing all kinds of documentaries. They run on the TV monitor in the foyer. So it's great to see them so engaged and involved.
And this gives them, making them a part of the system now, which is what's key to keeping them there. Keeping them there is they become part of the family.
Right.
Yeah, this is great. I'm glad to see. I like to see how your broadcasting course is going. I'd love to be able to stop down here sometime
Absolutely. We'd love to have you.
and see how that's doing, because I'm a big fan of that. I went to school for broadcasting, but I didn't go into it because there's a lot of money to be made, but for very few people.
Right.
And I wanted to make money right away, so I went into sales.
One of the great ways that we've found to kind of subtly infuse some more courses in broadcasting, we have our new broadcast teacher is also an English teacher, and as part of the broadcasting track, she has them do a lot of writing and script writing and screenplays and dialogue and writing news stories. So there's a huge part of, and not only that, and then presenting it to the rest of the class. So she really works with them about what goes on behind the scenes, not just behind the camera, but
You want to
the
get
other
into
part.
broadcasting, you've got to have a good handle on the English language and pronunciation. I get that all the time from Troy. Everybody says Tuesday, or how do I say, Tuesday or something. You always say Tuesday. I said, well, that's the correct way of saying it. In February, you know. But I learned that. But a kid today should know that if you want to go into broadcasting, yes, you've got to have good English skills.
yes.
'Cause we still do speak that in this country, for now anyway. But it is a challenge. Now, getting back to the budget, you really got a challenge on that, because your costs do go up, and in many cases even more than inflation.
Yeah.
Fortunately, fuel costs have gone down somewhat, so that's probably helping you a little bit.
Not as much as you would think, because we lock in a rate for all of the heating for the schools.
Right.
But for gas, automobile gas, we have a fixed rate with our bus contract. So many people would say, can't you negotiate, it must be cheaper for you since the
Well,
price
no,
of
because you
gasoline has
negotiate
gone
that
down.
at the beginning, and it stays
Yes.
that way, and the bus companies make a little more money, but that's
Right.
the way it goes. Of course, if it goes up, they lose. So it depends on which way it goes for both sides.
Right.
Now,
But sorry, to your point about the costs going up, I said our budget has gone up $300,000, but we've cut about $450,000 in services and
Right, so
stuff that would have been carried over from the year before. We reduced busing. We've eliminated 4 buses.
oh yes, I wanted to get into that.
We saved about $200,000 by doing that, but about 300 kids now will no longer be eligible for busing. We've implemented a fee for busing for some of the students, which will affect about another 300 students. So we went up $300,000, but we also cut $450,000 out of things that were previously in the budget. Fortunately,
on the busing thing, I want to get back to the budget, but on the busing thing, I remember this happened a number of years ago, probably about 20 years ago, when we had the big crunch.
Mhm.
And I remember those kids walking from Rockdale to what is the middle school now. And I felt I was going to work and I see them walking in the morning. I always wanted to give them a ride, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
I felt so bad, because I lived in Rockdale and I had to take the bus up to high school. This is wrong. I mean, these kids need to get an education too, and to have to walk, and it's going to take them a good half hour or better
Yeah.
every morning, and even in the cold, and this last winter with all this snow, I don't know how you could do it.
Right.
Is there going to be a way of handling some of that? The ones that can't afford to pay the bus?
well, we're not. So if you live outside of 2 miles, kindergarten through 6th grade, you'll get you automatically get free busing. That's what's
Right, but I'm
mandated
talking
by the
about
law.
middle school up, 7th grade up.
Yeah, if student, by law, if a student is part of the free and reduced lunch program, they're not, we're not allowed to charge them, so they would get to ride the bus for free.
They would still get to go on a
As
bus.
long as they're within the mileage limits that we have set, yes.
I know a lot of parents drop their kids off.
Yeah.
Yes.
You see the cars there every
That's a
day.
busy
Well,
morning.
That's something we're looking at as well. In the next few weeks, as we're sending out our notices about the busing and getting people registered and finding out the routes that we need to have, the other side to that is we are very concerned about the safety and the traffic patterns and the increased number of walkers that we'll have now.
Right.
So we're meeting with the safety committee in town and talking about doing some feasibility studies and looking at what we need to do in terms of having safe traffic patterns and safe drop-off patterns. Because quite honestly, it's scary during some
Right.
of the drop-off times at some of our buildings. So even to
Right.
stand out there and try to help monitor traffic and traffic flow can be challenging.
Do you think about changing your hours around?
We have had that conversation, but we need to be especially careful because mostly contractual issues. And we know high school would love to start later, but then that interferes with all the sports and after-school activities. So,
I know that it's been said,
discussed it.
there's been talk amongst educators that high school kids need to get more rest.
Mhm.
And that starting early in the morning is detrimental to them getting an education, and
True.
they should be able to start later.
Mhm.
And in fact, most colleges don't have classes until later in the morning.
Right.
That's how they party all night. But, well, a lot of professors don't have classes till 10,
Right.
11 o'clock and in the afternoon.
Studies show they do better later in the morning.
Yeah. But like you said, then how do you do it with the sports activities?
That's the challenge.
You'd have to, all the surrounding communities would have to be on
Yeah.
the same schedule, otherwise it wouldn't work.
Yeah, but even if you could, what do you start at 7 o'clock now for the high school?
7:20.
7:20. Even if you could move it up to 8 o'clock, but there again, that's a problem. And then you got the problem. It cascades down to the other schools because the buses have to be.
Right, the buses run in two flights, so
Yeah.
the buses drive the high school, middle schoolers, and they
Right.
also drive the
Yeah.
bomber NES, so they're in two different groups, so. we
And
have
that
to
would
keep
also interfere with Whitensville Christian School because
Right.
they're in the middle and, we bus them also, so
Yeah.
for our students. And anyone trying to get down Linwood Ave in the morning knows exactly
Oh, yes.
the challenge.
Now, is that bus situation being carried on with the Christian school as well?
Whatever our busing policy is, yes, we'll have to follow that.
Oh, okay. Because I know, a lot of them say, look, I'm saving you money because I'm paying for my son or daughter to go here rather than go to your school system, so you can pay for my busing. And I've always said, I have no problem with that. I have no problem with busing kids to Our Lady of the Valley.
Mm-hmm.
Because, they're getting the education and we're not having to pick it up.
Right.
We just pick up the busing.
Right.
But back to your budget, we all feel, if you had a real increase by what you actually need with no cuts, it would be probably somewhere around 5 or 6%.
It would have been about 800,000, so it still probably would have been around maybe 3 or 4%.
Well, see, that's not that much,
It's
really.
still not that much, no, not at all.
In fact, most of the other local school districts were right around that vicinity.
Yep.
They came in at 2.5 or 3%.
Right. Well, the town
Without
gets a
cuts.
2% increase
Mm-hmm.
every year because they
Right.
that's under 2.5 or 2.5.
Yep.
But then again, they need money in other aspects, other ends of the town too.
And the town manager put together a budget this year where he increased the town contribution to the school budget by
Yeah.
$450,000,
Yeah.
which we hadn't anticipated that. So that was a huge help. That
Yes.
Yeah.
that could have been more cuts, or
I said one thing for Ted. He knows his way around figures.
yeah, absolutely.
He's really good at that. But you've really
that
been
was
hurt.
a huge help.
Yes.
We had talked about potentially looking at a $1.3 million cut this year, but because of the things we've done, the cuts we've made, the
Right.
additional revenue that has come in, we've been able to minimize that. But it's still not great. But we're making the best of it, and
Right.
we're planning for the next year.
And we watch every penny come and go, right down to Melissa Walker is absolutely our guru, and she keeps
I
track
think
of
a
it
lot
all.
of people they don't go out and get the facts and figures. You hear about, the salaries are so high. I had someone that actually figured it out, and it averaged out around $45,000.
Hmm.
That's not a lot of money today. And you're talking, people went out and got a degree.
Yeah.
Don't you think
A
they deserve
master's
to
degree,
make?
and for the teachers.
Yeah, master's.
And with licensure, they need to continue to
Yeah.
take courses
I should-
and take workshops in order to maintain their licensure, and getting the licensure is expensive also.
And this is what I try to explain to people and even like your salary, they say, well, why do we pay the superintendent so much? Well, it's a competitive business. You're not going to get anyone
Yes.
if you don't pay a competitive wage.
Right.
Let's be realistic. And, these are probably the same people that say, well, I should make twice what I'm making. And I know it's hard to absorb and it's hard to accept. But I really don't see any waste in the budget. I mean, in the past there might have been, but I don't see that today.
Yeah, and I mean, if people have questions about the budget, it's posted on the school website. I
Right
mean,
on the front page.
It's so detailed. It's got every position, every salary.
Right down
It shows
to-
you where every.
We can leave a copy with
Yeah.
you if you'd like.
But it's
Yeah.
been on the website for the
Yeah.
last few years now, so there's a lot of detail. I have no problem if people don't. If people feel like the school's budget is too high in general, but nobody should not understand where the money goes, because we've been pretty transparent about that, I think.
And we're always open to questions
Absolutely.
as people are going through it.
You face the same cost that everybody else. Medical costs for medical insurance.
Yeah.
It goes up every year. You got to give your employee raises. Everybody deserves to get a little increase in pay. I get my employee increases. I mean,
And we
everybody.
have old buildings too, Harry, so.
Yeah, that's the other
The
thing.
cost for those buildings to maintain the equipment or the systems in those schools, other than in the high schools even, 10, 12.
2001.
Right, so
14,
15 years
yeah.
old now.
And all
Where
the
does it fly?
technology that we put in 2001 that was state of the art, we've tried our best to maintain that, but it's not state of the art anymore. So, and our old buildings with the old windows, heat as fast
Yes.
as it warms up. It's a challenge.
See,
Bursting pipes.
well, one of the problems with municipal buildings is you got so many things involved with these, with the unions and everything else, and the state guidelines and everything, and sometimes you don't get an efficient building.
Right.
And that could be a problem. And it costs, to put up a municipal building costs twice as much as putting up a for profit.
Because of prevailing wage.
Yeah.
Yes.
in the
Yeah.
state. That's a huge issue.
If that could be ended, it would make a world of difference
we
for
had-
a lot of
we-
school,
we
a lot of
faced-
budgets.
We faced that example on a small scale, but it was when we needed to paint the administration building. I mean, we ended up doing it in phases because it was so expensive because of the prevailing wage. We could have gotten it done for probably 25% of the cost.
Right.
If we weren't required to use prevailing wage, which is mass law.
Yeah.
So I don't understand that. It makes no sense.
No, this is something that the
Yeah.
unions got passed,
Yeah,
and we're stuck with it
yeah,
on everything. It costs twice as much to pave the roads.
yeah.
Everything you do is you got to pay that, and a lot of times the companies don't even pass it on.
Right.
I know that for a fact.
Well, and even on the municipal side, at Finance Committee this past week, they're talking about the need for new vehicles. For example, the street sweeper.
Oh yeah,
And
it's old. It's worn out.
the dust is
Fine.
falling out. And the fact that it has to go through a specific bid process.
Yes.
So even if there was someone in town who could help purchase one, it wouldn't be able to work that way.
Well,
It's a challenge.
we put that video system into the selectmen's room.
Mm-hmm.
It ended up costing around $40,000. If we didn't go through the state bid process, we could have put it in for 20,000.
Yeah.
In fact, we proposed one for your school committee meetings, and we could have got it for $20,000, but we would have to put it in without the prevailing wage, without the bid system, and we could have donated it to something. We'd have to work something out, but we couldn't do it.
Oh, that's too bad.
Yeah,
We could have used that.
yeah. But I mean, that's what you're up against.
Yeah,
That's why we're independent here now, so we don't have to do that.
right.
We're not part of the town any longer.
Right.
We work off a grant, but we're in control of our own money. We go out and find the best pricing, and not having to go through the state bid system, which is way up.
Yeah, it's challenging.
It is. Well, to me, that call coming in at the last minute. They always wait till we almost over now. See, we only got about 5 minutes left. They got a call here. We're going to take it real quick. Yeah. Okay. You've got to make this real quick, Paul.
Yeah, I'm here. Just
Yeah.
want me to go ahead?
Yes, real quick.
Oh, okay. Yeah. They were talking about the staff at the administration building, and I was just curious to how they felt about raises for the people in the administration building that haven't gotten one in the last 3-4 years. If they would be willing to give them a raise over the next year or two.
Well,
I mean, we've discussed it. Our administrators, our non-union employees, this will be the third year in a row that they did not receive a raise. We are still looking at that. It's something we would like to do as a committee. We've discussed it. We haven't finalized that, but we're definitely going to address it. Absolutely. I don't think it's right that it's been this long without a raise. As Harry mentioned,
Yeah.
people get raises, and you're not going to retain quality employees if you're not able to pay them competitively. So
no, I mean, people are going to go out looking for other jobs.
Exactly, and we've experienced that this
Yep.
year in our administrative staff.
Well, we've got to wrap it up. The hour flew, didn't it?
it did flew right by.
Well,
Thank you for calling.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, well, I thank you for coming in. I hope
Thanks for
people
having us.
understand. If you want to come in again between now and town meeting, you're more than welcome to come in. Oh, real quick, you have an override going on the,
No
no,
override.
no debt exclusions?
No
Nope.
debt exclusion.
No? All right, so it'll only be on the municipal side
Just the
then.
budget. Yeah.
Yes,
Oh,
it's a new season.
I like having Dr. Stickney here because she always brings me a gift. And oh,
We
look at
have a
this.
new baseball and a new lacrosse
New,
season starting.
There you go.
There
Yeah.
we go.
Great.
I'll I hope Mr. Demajan has another good year.
Hope so.
All right, well, thank you very much for tuning in, and we'll be back next week at the same time, same place, and our guest will be Dave Moradian, our new state rep.